Good morning. Welcome to this week's Ascended World. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avagnoni.
bringing you this wonderful weekly collective. Anyhow, so yeah, and actually I want to say that because I know some people listen and they get a little, sometimes they're like, well, where are you? What do you guys talk about before you get on? I've heard that. And I'm like, well, we start with our personal stuff and then it sort of gets into bigger picture things, which is why we
Right.
sort of weed out all that day-to-day gunk to get to the bigger stuff quicker on the recording. So anyway, we were talking. So you're saying, so you woke up and you were having these.
It was like 4 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning, and I kept having this feeling that there was a huge part of me that I hid or denied or covered up or isolated or partitioned off, whatever words you want to put towards it. But I denied it as part of me.
Mm-hmm.
I judged it. I deemed it as the bad,
Mm-hmm.
the bad parts of me, and everybody says, oh, I've done the shadow work, whatever. So I kept deeming that piece of me as the shadow portion of me.
Yeah.
And the more I started looking at that and the more I started, poking at it, I realized that it was actually, well, you combine the understanding that you create your own reality. So if I had denied that much of me, it was only the portion of me that I acknowledged that was creating the reality I was experiencing. And when I realized that, it was like a lightning bolt that, oh my God, the part that I'm deeming the bad part of me didn't create this. The part that I think is the good part of me did.
So
And I mean,
look at that part of you.
that
Yeah.
that was like, knock me down, beat me, kind of, whoa, this is not at all what I believed. It's like, you've heard people say, what if everything you believed is wrong?
Right.
And that's exactly what it felt like. And all in that moment, it's like all the realizations that hit me. And I felt like I'd been carrying this part of me that on some level I knew I couldn't let die,
Mm-hmm.
but I couldn't nurture it too much because then it would become stronger. So I couldn't hold it at bay. And it was like I texted you on Saturday that I felt like I've been pregnant for 12 years, ever since I started this work. And that's when the weight gain started. That's when, I went through really early menopause, which are all symptoms of pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, at that point, I knew that I either had to stop nurturing it and let it die or give birth, that I couldn't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And then the realization that the part of me that I'd been nurturing was one that felt that we should be suffering consequences for everything that we've done. And that's what's important, is the consequence.
Oh,
And I just was like, oh, that's horrible.
well, yeah. And that is perfect to that follow-up of the discussion you and I had Friday morning, which had
Exactly.
so for anybody listening, we can fill you in on the realization of the like what I had. I think it started because I was talking about the dream that I had, right? Yeah, well, right. A dream, one of the dreams that I'd had, and it was like, and it was like where something was going on, and then somebody told me something that was going on, and I was like, no, I know that's not it, and I was getting really angry. Like, even though what they told me was enough to make me angry in the dream, I was like, nope, this isn't it. This is a distraction because I could spend
Oh, right.
all my energy on this instead of like, really seeing what's underneath it. And in the dream, I even said that. And I was like, no, there's something else. There's something else. And the person wasn't even conscious. It was my husband. And then I asked, actually, the next morning, I was telling him about the dream. And I said, so what is it you haven't told me? And he looks at me like, I don't know. But you could see there's a little flicker, even if it's not even conscious of that it's there, right? So then when I realized what it was, I realized he's not even conscious of it, right?
Right.
So the thing is, it's not holding it. So then you and I were talking about the money, the weight, because of conversations you and I have had and that I've had with others and that you've had with others and all that kind of stuff. So money, weight, what other things did we come up with? There were like
following the rules.
Yeah, there were so many things that we put so much energy to that really are irrelevant to the bigger picture, right?
Right.
So a lot of us who go through this more conscious path go through this period of gaining weight, right? Because it's protection. It's a whole lot of, it balances the physics of holding more like a higher vibration body,
being a bigger presence, being that bigger presence,
staying connected in gravity and all that kind of stuff. So and many of us have had it, including myself, and it's like, so my guidance has been continuously, because what are we trained to do? We are trained to get distracted by the symptom and not the core.
Right.
So what's the distraction? So the distraction is just as much not having money, right, as it is like having extra weight or
cancer,
or being in a relationship that's I just can't help myself. Addicted. Right.
Or addicted to anything, whether it's a chemical or whether it's shopping or whether it's codependency.
Yeah. So
all
that does is it pulls all of our energy outside of ourselves and all of our focus outside of ourselves. And that's the one thing, and I realize that's the thing that has made me edgy, even, and yeah, I do my best to not ever judge, but I always step back and observe, and it's like, well, why am I edgy about this, right? Why am I edgy about the twin flame conversation, right? Oh, I can't help myself, and I have to be with this person, and it's like, no, you don't. Nope. Because you already are. And so there's all this stuff, but we don't realize that how much of a huge percentage are distractions, right? So what came to us when we were having that conversation, that was a precursor to this too, that you're talking about, was because maybe as a collective as well as individuals, we believe that to continue being in the game, if you become more conscious, you have to be handicapped.
You still have to follow the rules
in some way, shape, or form, or you're handicapped, right? So either so there's many people who have like even chronic illnesses, and they've done so much to like resolve and clear and whatever, and then they're just like, I don't understand. It's like, well, what about this? What if we look at the level of, I believe I have to be handicapped if I'm in higher consciousness, if I exist fully in higher consciousness, because the game's not fair if I am.
Right.
If I'm not, if I'm not. The game's not fair if I'm not. That's so huge. So then you woke up with that.
I woke up with that, and I mean, that was at 4. I finally got out of bed at 5 because I couldn't lay there anymore, and I didn't want to disturb my husband because the tears were starting to come, and so I couldn't distract myself with anything because we had no internet, no TV, nothing. So and nobody else got up in the house for a good 3 hours. So I sat with that, and I had to see that other part of me and come to terms with the understanding that what I was nurturing and given all of my quote light to was that part of me that, you know, I really in 3D terms was the bad. And you know, if it's my judgment was totally wrong.
Well, that's a judgment.
Right. Well, but then you come full circle back around once you realize that, you know, after you get through the whiplash of that reality, is that it's all perfect. But it was the duality and the judgment that made it such a catastrophic combination.
Right.
Which of course is perfect. But it was like, you know, you go through those agreements with yourself, like, well, I'll never do this again, and you know, and I promise this and all this kind of stuff if I can just, you know, because I just felt literally pulled apart.
Right.
And once I came to terms with all those feelings, it came to more of that balance and that wholeness and that understanding, and look at the magnificence of everything that I put into play to bring this huge alignment of this understanding. And without one part of it happening, I don't think I could have come to this place. And the perfection and the beauty and the whole orchestration of that. And it took the whole day to let that settle in and to come to acceptance of all that. But it was after watching both of my parents in hospice die and their struggle to let go of this, I felt like that's where I was, from the perspective of, I felt like I had to let that piece of me die to allow the other one to be born. But at the same time, like in a yin and yang, they can't exist without each other. And so the letting go felt like a death, but at the same time, it was actually just the rebalance of everything.
Yeah.
But it was
what it makes me think of when you say that, the letting go, makes me think of, and I know this is very 3D, but it's like when I went to do that the salt bath, the float tank.
Deprivation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The deprivation tank. And that when I was just staying completely observant to what was going on, right? And for anybody who doesn't know, it's a very highly salinated tank so that you can do nothing but float on the top of the water, and the water is exactly your body temperature. The temperature is of the air is exactly to match, and
soundproof.
So soundproof, and you have absolute
dark
light, yeah, and totally dark. So you have no concept of physical senses whatsoever. So when you let go of that, now a lot of people have a problem letting go of that, right? So you let go. But what I noticed when I did that was I could observe everything. And this is a very physical thing, right? But this goes along with what you're talking about too. It's like I could feel when I wasn't distracted, right? And I looked at all of it, I could feel, and I knew exactly where I was holding any kind of tension in my body, like down to the muscle, where I could literally just direct my thought to say, let go.
Right.
Right. Without judgment, without, oh, it hurts, it's this or whatever. And then when that happens, when you do let it go, though, it's like, oh. But then I have even less to distract me and keep me physical.
Yeah. Yep.
Because once I did that through my entire body, and then I was like, oh, okay, just let it all go. Then I was nothing but consciousness. And that was the really cool part. Now that could scare people because that's just, then what am I? But it was so awesome. So probably what you're talking about is just such a deep part of what we hold here collectively.
Well, and the belief, I mean, to the core of my being, that it was almost my purpose to ensure that we enforced the consequences of the rules of this dimension.
Yeah. And I'm just yawning nonstop. So it's like a really big one.
Yeah, because and when you're raising kids, you feel like consequences are the best teacher.
Right.
Because it's not you, it's not personal, it's just that's a consequence of your action. And it is so amazing to let go of that, because then the opportunities and the possibilities, that is, in my mind, the creative void.
Yes. Well, and let's just think of how much of a distraction, even subliminally, that we have running all the time, right?
All the time.
Like even things like if I, right, so here's the little punishment thing. If things are going too well, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Right.
Um,
and we've even programmed parts of our brain to take over that, so we don't have to be consumed with that, because what if I don't take the next breath?
Right.
What if I don't blink my eyes? What if my heart doesn't beat?
Right.
Those are all the things that we've relegated to automatic, so to speak.
Oh my God, I can't stop yawning. So.
And the consequences of that not happening are tragic. You die. You believe you're going to die.
I was going to say, that's judgment too, the tragic. It's the ego.
Right.
Thing.
Right.
That I wouldn't care anymore. But then part of it is to finish being here anyway, right?
Right.
So. Well, yeah, I was noticing all those things over the weekend, and obviously they were coming up, and I was just processing through a much different kind of way,
Right.
So, for example, I was talking to my mother yesterday morning, right? Now, my mother has had an identity connection to her sickness or what's wrong, right?
Right.
Since I was about, I don't know, as far back as I can remember, right? And I'm not saying that with any judgment. This is just how she is. And the thing is, the reason I mention this is because she is a perfect representation of like 98% of the population.
Right. Right.
We are here, and I talk about that, I think about that a lot. I'm like, this is really what I think is a upside down world, like more like that we're not aware of when we come in here, because we're sort of upside down in it, right?
Right.
But a majority of us come here in incarnate, and a massive part of our existence is what we want to avoid, right? Is our identity with lack, and commiserating together in our identities of lack, right?
Right. Right.
We'll talk about the heart, like all you need to do is talk about, oh, somebody who's about to give birth for the first time. How many people all want to tell you their horror story?
Their story.
Not the great stories about giving birth, but the horror stories about giving birth, right?
Right.
and instead of, it's unique to the individual because it is, right?
Right.
And but the thing is, and sickness, and we talk about sickness all the time, what's ailing us, and how old we're getting and how decrepit. And it was really funny because I was in Kung Fu on Saturday, and one of the leading instructors, who is a really great guy, he's like, I think he's turning 60 this year, right? All he ever talks about is like how he's getting old, how he's creaky and this and that. And I looked at him on Saturday. I just looked at him. I said, Don, I said, you're in martial arts, you're a secondary black belt in Kung Fu, Shaolin Kung Fu. I said, I don't really think you're old and creaky.
Right.
I said, maybe you're sore because you work out a lot. But
Right.
I was like, I said, it has nothing to do with, I said, I said, I said, you know who are old? People who decide that they're old.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with the number. So he's like, oh, you're right. I need to stop saying that. And I said, well, then just stop saying it. And when you go to say it, say to yourself, because I will get on him about it because he says it a lot. And he always is so extremely self-deprecating.
Oh, that's tough. That's hard to be around.
Yeah, it is.
My
Especially,
husband used to be really bad with that, and he's come a long way on that one.
and it's like, well, like, I don't know. I might not be the person asking. I'm like, you're fine. Why not you? I mean, you obviously had a test to get there, or else you wouldn't be there,
Right.
I mean, to be in a second degree black belt, I don't know, 5-6 years of practice. So I'm just like, well, so but we do that all the time, right? And then we do it also, like, to get. Now I don't think he does it that way. I think he actually just does that, and I just am like, well, stop being Eeyore kind of thing, But then there are those who use the self-deprecation as a tool to solicit compliments from other people. Also,
see, and I substitute manipulate for solicit.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
And,
manipulate others into reassuring you that that's not the case.
Yeah. So, it's funny. It's my youngest Sierra. When she was younger, she did that a lot until I started calling her on it. I'm like, do you really believe that about yourself?
Or is this the point where I'm supposed to say, oh no, that's not true?
Scott and Brandon and I all started doing that. We're like, oh wait, this is the part where she wants to say, oh no, Sierra,
right,
or whatever.
Right.
And like, and then you feel uncomfortable when somebody calls you out on that, right? Because then it's like, oh wait, you caught me, right?
Right.
So, but think about this. This goes back to that identity, the individualization, and the collective connection based in lack, and what I'm calling this sort of this upside down world. But anyway, so this goes back to I was talking to my mother, and so she's got, of course, she goes one place and somebody was coughing, so the next day she's sick, right?
Right.
This is how it goes all the time. And it doesn't matter whether it's in her head or not, because it's all in our heads, all of it. Right? It's all in our, it's all in our egos. It's all in what we decide we have to do based on these parameters of the rules that we have that are subconscious to, how we go day to day. So, she's going on about this. And when she wanted me to go, like, are you going food shopping? I need honey and milk. And I said, well, we probably will, but I honestly have no idea when we're going to get to go food shopping today because we're flooring the bathroom upstairs. So she's like, and then she's like getting even more. It's like she's making herself, making herself sound even more,
desperate and needy.
And I just said, well, I said, you know what? It's 65 degrees outside. Go to the store and get it. You'll feel better getting outside. Oh, well, I opened the windows yesterday. I'm like, except just getting out sometimes helps you feel better.
Right.
Right. And then she's, of course, well, and all she wanted me to do is do something for her, because that's the thing. And I'm not like putting any judgment on her, but because this is a common human thing. It is a common thing for us to do. Oh, it's like we try to get people to do things by our sense of lack. Try to get things through sense of lack. And instead of, what if we came to the table of completeness and wholeness, and I already have everything, so you can't get, yeah, okay. And if I am guided to ask you, you have something obviously that I need. But anyway, she's getting more and more irritated. And the point was that at one point, I don't know what she said, but I was done, not tired. I was just done. I needed to go back to what I was doing, and get off the phone. And I was like, well, I said, I don't. She said, you know what I mean? And I said, I really don't, though. I really don't know what you mean. I said, because I don't really get sick.
Right. Right.
Which she knows is truth, right? And when I do, it passes through so quickly because I know how to manage it and I know what to look at, on the rare occasion that it happens. But I was like, I just really don't get sick. And then right away, what happened was she needed to punish me because I said that. Right. So what did she say? That's what your father always used to say, because in her mind, the worst thing she could do is equate me with my father, which isn't the case either in my book. I don't know. It's like, honestly, that's one of the great things I did inherit from my father was he was very healthy.
Right.
And by the way, and he was not somebody who let a thing like a cold hold him down or whatever. He'd just be like, okay, I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to tend to and nourish myself the way that I know will help me to get through this really quickly and then move on. But then she's like, oh, well, he always said that and da da da. But then when he got sick, he was a big baby. And I was just like, yeah, I just don't see that either because he was never that way as far as I remember him. Of course, I got divorced when I was like 2. But the thing is, all she started doing is because she couldn't get me to commiserate in that lack, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that place of misery loves company, or I know what you mean, or whatever. And I do understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, except I don't live that way.
Right.
When we do that here, collectively, what does the collective do? Like, oh my God, how dare you to not play these rules?
Right.
And I talked.
Right. And I felt my piece of it went even deeper from the perspective of, if I quit following these rules, will I cease to exist in this place?
Right. Well, because that's what we believe, right? That's why you've got to follow the rules.
Well, and that's what we believe has perpetuated the existence of this duality and this dimension.
Right. And I was looking at that as I was doing my other stuff, and I guess, like I said, I really was flowing through all this because I was doing my, painting and house stuff and whatever. But if I look at more and more of the people that are in my circle, and I realize that we're biased on our perspectives based on what we surround ourselves with, right, in our own experience.
Right.
But, more and more of the people that I communicate with on a regular basis, like those who I speak with like that on a constant basis, we all come from that perspective of, I can just flow through this. I don't need to be held back by it.
Right.
And by the way, kudos to you and kudos to me for transcending that.
Right. And that's the place where I got to Sunday. Actually, by the end of the day, Saturday. And at some point, I asked my husband to just come and sit. And I said, you're not going to understand what I'm going to say, but I just need to verbalize all of this. And I need to just let it out. And so I just started rambling about all this that I was feeling and seeing. And, the tears just came out. And then all of a sudden, this was the really interesting part. This was actually the part I loved the most, was the power in my house blinked.
Awesome.
Just briefly. I mean, some appliances, the clock went away and some didn't. I mean, that's how quick it was. And I felt like it was all gone.
Nice.
It was like flipping a switch and I was like, oh, okay, I'm all good now.
Because it can be that easy. It doesn't
Right.
have to be hard. It doesn't have to be all the suffering or sickness or ailment or lack or, weight or money. It doesn't have to be any of that.
Right.
Like we can.
It was, and I don't want to say a weight was lifted because that's not at all what it feels like. What it feels like is balance and proportion and flow that I didn't realize how much I'd been preventing.
Right. And that goes to that question. What comes into mind when you say that is, well, what if I allowed all possibility? What if I allowed it?
Right. And what what am I, and whether you need to ask this or not, but what part of you are you disallowing?
Right.
What are you disallowing that once you allow the potentials? I mean, it's that creative void. Anything's possible.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah. And lately, I found myself saying that question, the what if you allow all possibility?
Right.
Because it sounds like a really simple question, but that's a really deep thing to look at, right? If I allowed all possibility, what would it look like? That's another good question, right? That was sort
Right.
of what got me past the Peru blockage, right?
Right.
If
Right.
I allowed this possibility, what would that mean? What would that look like? And that was when it all just came up, bleh, puked out, and was gone. And then I was like, oh,
Right.
okay. Because to allow that possibility, I had to let go of that dark shadow that I was holding in the cells,
Mm-hmm.
that would cause
Right.
me to create blockages or prevent me and cause situations that would prevent me from doing that. And it becomes, I mean, it is that simple. What if I allowed this possibility? Look at the thing that you don't want to look at. What if I allowed this possibility?
Right.
What would that
Right.
look? What would that entail?
Well, and what if and I know we've said this before, but this feels like such a different level. What if I stop judging the possibilities?
Right. Well, that's right. And that's the whole allowing, because to allow them would mean to accept them. Right.
Right. Which is losing the judgment.
Yeah.
Right.
To say, okay, so I'll do this. I'll see this. I'll be a part of this.
Right.
We do that when we're not here. We do that from higher consciousness.
Right.
Because the best, most colorful way of creation is, it's funny, I just happened to look over at my cork board and there's this thing that I've become blind to because it's been so long. But this is like perfect, like, because then it becomes the best part of creation, right?
Right.
You can create anything.
Right.
The back of this, it was part of a card that I had gotten, but the back of it says, dare to dream big. And unfortunately, we limit ourselves from dreaming big when we limit our possibilities of getting there.
Right.
So,
Which, all feeds into the, how can you be that powerful if you are only allowing such a small part of who you are to even be acknowledged by yourself, much less anyone else?
yeah. Oh, it just feels like so many chains fall away.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What if you allowed, like, here are the things that we keep deep down underneath us, right? What if you allowed everyone who you love to walk away from you because of your power?
Right.
What if you allowed the possibility of your children, and I'm not talking about you specifically, I'm talking about collectively, these are the things that we
Right.
really underneath, like, these are those things that we talked about several months ago about, like, I'll let go of all of this, but I can't let go of that. This is my precious, right? Going back
Right.
to the precious thing, right?
Right.
So it's like, what if I said, okay, what if I allowed that? What if I allowed my the possibility that my child would die, my spouse would die, my whatever, my situation would change, I would lose everything. Everybody I love walked away from me. I mean, there's so many options. Like, that I would lose part of my body. That I don't know. There's so many different things that we could look at. But what if I allowed that possibility as a possibility to create infinite in an infinite manner and the full ability of what I could potentially create?
Right.
And then the judgment comes in, right? Collectively. Well, who are you? Like, you just don't know what it's like. You don't know what it's
Right.
like to do,
Right.
because you haven't had that experience from those who have had, right? You don't know what it's like to not have this. You don't know what it's like to, and it's like, but I do because you're me. And if that's your
Right.
experience, we're still part of the same thing. And by the way, you're reflecting back to me. I'm sure I've done it before someplace else. That's what I always say.
Right.
So, so that's where we get down to. We sort of talked about that a little bit, I think last week or the week before. But that's where those little punishment, because who are you to tell me? Or, and it's like, but the thing is, what happens is, I'm not telling you anything. I'm just existing. I'm just being. I'm just doing.
Right.
Right?
I'm just being that vibration.
Yeah. So who are you to do that? Right there. That's the collective part. Who are you
Right.
to transcend that? You know?
Right. You're not playing by the rules. Who are you to not play by the rules?
That's right.
There has to be consequences to not playing by the rules.
And I went through that. I went through that a lot in different layers. It's like this is a whole different layer, like a whole new level of it, you know, that we're talking about.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's I don't know, maybe we're looking at, you know, consequences of down here when actually the consequences that we're dealing with now are the massive consequences.
Well, probably.
Literally.
Well, because when we're looking interdimensional, because everything's related, right? Well, then there's
Right.
like, oh, well, what holds this hologram in place? Like, how dare you not?
Right. Right. How dare you destroy what we've worked so hard to create and maintain?
Right.
Right. And how dare you let go of the consequence of creating it in the first place?
Yes. Yes.
Ah,
Yeah. Yep.
that one almost left me speechless
Yeah.
for a minute.
So
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. All of that.
Yeah. And because I can hear it, like I can hear it, like, you know, when we say this, and it's like I can hear it out there and like more so feel it, of this discomfort at this much larger level. There's your yawns now, right?
Oh yeah.
At this much larger level of, but the whole project will fall apart. The whole plan will fall
Right.
apart.
Right.
And it's like, well, what if that was the plan from the very beginning?
Right. Exactly.
Because if we're here and we're remembering and we're shifting and doing it differently, right, which was the message back in October, time to, you know, it's a commitment to do it differently. Well, then maybe it's time to have it all just collapse.
Right.
But the word collapse comes along with a judgment for many too, right?
Oh yeah.
Like, not say,
Absolutely.
what if we just say, no, it's complete? You know, it makes me think of, remember when we did that Stargate thing that time? Remember
Mm-hmm.
that I had that
Mm-hmm.
vision and I could see the entire universe in like one moment. And it was almost like breathing, right? This undulation, right? But it was also,
Right.
and it was like, look what we can do. We can pull apart and together. But we're really never apart because we're still part of the, you know, it's like this whole like,
Right.
and I was like, it was so huge. I just had tears. It was so beautiful and amazing because it's like the love is there. We, you know, pull apart to forget the love, then we come back together and we're like, oh, we're, you know, but it's all like it never really happens because it's just
Right.
right. So, but then it's like it's if we want to allow it to form, to create, to like have some kind of form, then we would allow it to come apart. Like it's almost like seeing a big blob. Like I think of lava lamps, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like coming apart and coming back together. You know, and this is like, but that's even in a linear fashion. But it wasn't even like that. It was just amazing. So it's like part of the experience is the creation, and then the creation, and then the creation, and then the creation.
Right. You know, if you want to, if you want to get really simpler, it's like, okay, well, let's complete this level of the game so we can get to the next level of the game.
Right. To keep it somehow, structured in the mind.
Pertinent. Right.
Because the mind's trying to grasp onto that, going, what?
Right. Right.
So, so the thing is, instead of, and so what that goes down to is if we created rules, we created judgment, right? Because that's
Right.
personality, separation. You can or you can't. You have or you don't.
Right.
So there, oh, there's the audience. So then if we, so to actually accept and allow all possibilities to be free of the rules.
Yeah. Just be free, to be complete, whole.
Right. To remember that wholeness, to remember that,
Right.
and to always
Well,
be there.
you know, something that just popped into my mind is we obviously feel that that's what's necessary to make things different because we just love these superhero movies, which to be a superhero, you aren't subject to the rules in
Right.
some form or fashion.
Right.
And that's what saves the day.
It always. So we're
Always.
starting to remember. So at some point, at some level, we know that. We know that.
Right. Right. But we're still projecting it outside of ourselves.
Well, and we're projecting it to somebody else, right? Versus
Right. Right.
me. I'm the superhero, right?
Right.
I get to save my own day.
And so are you.
And so are you. Exactly. You're the superhero and you get to save your own day.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So then nobody's day needs saving because everybody saved their own.
Yeah. Now that is quite the Infinity War kind of like movie.
Right. Exactly.
But that cast was big. That's an even bigger one. So, yeah. So, what do we focus on for that? Is just that allowance, remembering and allowing, and knowing that we're worthy to, and that.
I think I need to take a bio break before I can come up with that.
All right. So, allowing all possible. Well, it goes back to just allowing all possibility and transcendence and freedom and realization. There goes that back to your actualization thing.
Right, right. Which I think is what led me to where I was, being fully actualized from the wholeness.
So, remembering what that is, remembering how to be whole, remembering.
Embodying the freedom of wholeness.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I'll write that down. Because half the time, 15 minutes after we get done, I'm like, what are we talking about?
Oh, I know. I know. I don't know if we need to say anything about the rules and consequences, and that's freedom.
Infinite freedom. Wow, just freedom. Yeah, embodying freedom. Ooh, that feels good.
Yeah, that does.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, we can stop right there, I think. I can barely talk anymore. I'm like, oh, I'm already going.
Yeah, no, I feel like I'm gone.
All right, let's go, shall we?
Yep.
have no idea how long we were out there because that was really nice.
Oh yeah, I don't either. No clue.
I almost forgot we were on this. I was like, oh wait, I can stay here.
Well, I ended up shifting my focus from what we said to, first it was, I am freedom, and then I ended up with, or I allow, embody, embrace, freedom, and then it's I am freedom, and then I am freedom of infinite possibilities.
Oh, nice.
And that really just, it like lit the place on fire. And I could see that it was almost like standing what you'd think would be like a lookout over the Grand Canyon, but it was a lookout over the multiverse.
Yeah, nice.
And that it was the, if you want to use, a 3D term like compass, but it was all, filtered through the heart, because all possibilities are everything, but the heart chooses direction.
Right.
Yeah, and that was just like, bam. Really very empowering, very, very expansive.
Yeah, I had adjusted mine to include say I embody, experience, and create in freedom.
Right.
I saw a lot of things in there, and I can't even remember what I saw because it was like so many things got like, I don't want to say released, but like sort of untethered. It was
right. Or redefined.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I see, is that things just become redefined, not necessarily dissolve or, change. It's just that they just get redefined and fall into place.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was really funny because there was something out there. I was like, I have to remember this. Tell Sarah when I come back. I can't remember it now. So.
Maybe it'll come to you later in the day.
Yeah, maybe.
Or next week when we do this again.
Probably. Oh, lovely. Wow, that was amazing as always. We're going to close out for today. So have a great week.
Go sit in this.
Go sit in freedom.
Go get that vibration for yourself.
Be free. Well, it's like Brandy, right? Be free. That's her thing.
That's right. It is.
All right. Have a great day, everyone. Have a great week. We'll talk to you later. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Evignoni
signing out on this week's Ascended World. Have a good one.